Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 603, He Found My Being, Set It Up. Now, this is another longing poem. It's also a poem where we don't know who the he of the poem is. Some, like Ruth Miller, will say this is Jesus Christ. Some, like Judith Farr, will say, no, this is Sam Boyles, that great influencer in her life. Will have to read the poem without knowing for certain who it is that she is going to attribute this setting up of so much of her life, and then the longing for that individual to return. We'll get to it in a moment. Now our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily's our playlist. Hopefully you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 602 poems. We just finished with 602 of Brussels. It was not. Now, if you have done that reading, you will be able to place this poem within the larger context of these, what we have been calling longing poems. In other words, it's as if something has not yet been completely taken care of for Emily. She is expecting something in a very powerful longing way. Now, standing, as is often the case in many of her poems, standing behind this poem, I think, is probably as well a biblical reference. Namely, what we call the parable of the talents. That idea from Matthew 25, 14 to 30, of the father who gives money or talents, gold talents, to his sons, and then leaves, and then will come back later to, quote unquote, judge the boys on how well it is that they've done. Let's see how Emily plays that game. He found my being, set it up, adjusted it to place, then carved his name upon it, and bade it to the east be faithful in his absence. And he would come again with equipage of amber, that time to take it home. Now it is, I think, easy to set this poem next to Milton's Sonnet 19, when I consider how my life is spent. You'll remember he says, we've given full lectures on it at LearnStrong.net, lest he returning chide. That idea that going away, staying away, but someday coming back, and I better be prepared upon the return. Notice, he found my being. It's interesting, this word found. It's as if he was searching and he found my, notice, being capitalized. Again, our big five: epistemology, what you can know. What's the second one? Ontology, who you are. So in other words, there's something fundamental, she says. Whoever the he is, found it. And then notice dash, set it up, dash. Now, this is interesting, the setup, because that's going to be, I mean, you can read that positively as well as negatively. And then notice, adjusted it to place, not in place, but to place. Then, notice, we do this, then we do this, then we do this, we're to the third thing. Carved his name upon it. Wow. So in other words, left such a strong imprint that no way to get away from it. And bade it to the east be faithful. Now, again, the idea of the east here has given all kinds of scholars thought. Are we talking about the publishing houses of the east, especially of New York City? Is that what she's referencing? And then be faithful is the injunction. And again, the religious language obviously leads somebody like Ruth Miller to say, well, we're talking about Jesus Christ here, obviously. In his absence. Now, this again takes us to the parable of the talents of Matthew 25, 14 through 30, as we were saying. And he would come again. We commented on this in our series on all the poems of Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We call that series Talks with Wool. That the very first word of the deathbed edition of Whitman's Leaves of Grass is the word come. And all the way through the Leaves of Grass, the word come keeps coming up, no pun intended, again and again, as we've said. It's that expectant kind of thing. Something is going to happen. I think Emily is very similar in her use of this word. Notice that he would come again, again now back to the Milton passage of Sonnet 19, when I consider my life is spent, only he's going to come back with equipage of amber. Now, when we get to poem 712, maybe one of Emily's most famous of all poems, this equipage or this carriage will come back. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste. and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the rain. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill. For only gossamer, my gown, my tippet, only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. A roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. When we get to poem 1053, we'll come back to play this game one more time. It was a quiet way. He asked if I was his. Notice again the similarities. I made no answer of the tongue, but answer of the eyes. And then he bore me on before his mortal noise with swiftness as of chariots and distance as of wheels. This world did drop away as acres from the feet of one that leaneth from balloon upon an ether street. The gulf behind was not. The continents were new. Eternity, it was before. Eternity was due. No seasons were to us. It was not night nor morn, but sunrise stopped upon the place and fastened it to dawn. Now, some have pointed out that the use of the word amber leads us to think that maybe Sam Boyles is being referenced here because his favorite color was yellow. Again, no way for us to know for sure. But whatever it is, he would come again that time to take, notice it's not me home, but rather it home. And notice home here capitalized. Well, we have said that, they were teaching us this idea that you have not met any 200-year-old people. And that is significant. Why? Because all of us were taught at young age when we were swinging at the park, you can't stay at the park forever. It's time to go to the van, they would say to us as children. And what would we say? No, I don't want to go to the van. I want to keep swinging. And what would the adults say? No, no, honey, the van is waiting. You have to go to the van. You haven't met any 200-year-old people. In other words, there will be someone to come and take you home, it home, us home. She's talking about the soul. She's talking about her goal of publishing. If it's Sam Boyles, for example, we are not clear. Obviously, the idea here is that it's often hard to wait for the equipage, for the carriage, right? At 2b, the obvious question is, who is the he of this poem? Emily, however, has played this game before. You will remember it. Guys, remember in 587, empty my heart of thee. Its single artery begin and leave thee out. Simply extinction's date. Such much billow hath the sea, one Baltic they. Subtract thyself and play, and not enough of me is left to put away. Myself meant thee. Erase the root, no tree. Thee, then no me. The heavens stripped, eternity's vast pocket picked. You'll remember when we did that poem, everything hinges on who the thee of the poem is, and yet, much like this poem, we just don't know. And then, of course, we commented as well that Matthew 25 passages there, as well as obviously Milton's Sonnet 19. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on that poem, as well as, of course, all the lines in the books of Paradise Lost. I think so much of what Emily's doing here is playing a similar kind of game as Milton was playing. Finally, at 3b, who has carved his or her name on you? And to what degree is Emily playing that game? I hope so. Thank you.